Welcome! This is a little bit of a different video for me today because this is actually my video entry into an awesome competition that's currently running on YouTube from a fantastic channel that I've recently started subscribing to. The channel in question, and I shall link to his competition video in the description, is Vinyl Community Steve Carlson. Really enthusiastic record collector, really enjoying his videos. And I also want to give a shout out to the guy who I found Steve via, which is Daryl at Off the Beaten Tracks. He entered Steve's competition, and I'd been subscribing to Off the Beaten Tracks for quite a while. This is my entry. I left Steve a comment on one of his videos yesterday asking if I was eligible to enter, being he is US based, I think, or it could be Canada, United States, I believe, and obviously in the United Kingdom, and he said yeah, it's open worldwide. So the object is to pick your 5 go-to albums, like 5 albums that if you just wanted to listen to some music, some really good music that you've always enjoyed. Channels like Steve Carlson and Daryl at Off the Beaten Tracks, they almost always showcase vinyl records. And obviously, as you know, I've been showing some vinyl on my channel the last few months. I haven't got any of the albums mentioned on vinyl, but it doesn't matter. And if you want to enter this contest, and like I said, I'm going to leave the link down there, and I will leave a link for Off the Beaten Tracks' channel as well, as he's well worth checking out if you're a music fan. Steve says that you can use any format, could be CD, tape, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be stuff that you've got on vinyl record. You don't even have to have any vinyl records. It's just all about the actual music. Fantastic. So I've picked 5 albums that I love and that I can just pick up and put on and just enjoy from start to finish. They're not in any order of preference. I had to whittle it down, and there's bands and artists that I love that didn't make the final 5. So I'll start out with my first album. It is What's the Story? Morning Glory by Oasis. I put this on and it takes me right back to the mid-90s, where I had, I wouldn't say no cares in the world, but as a sort of middle teen, I didn't have that many cares in the world, apart from, you know, the usual acne and trying to get girls to notice me sort of thing. Yeah, good luck with that, James. But this just evokes a really sort of fit of nostalgia for me. I put this on and it's like, I think back to when cigarettes were cheaper and the summers seemed to last longer, and music magazines were full of, you know, guys like Oasis and Blur. We still had a lot of music magazines and music papers back then. This edition, of course, is on mini disc. It's not too rare, this, as a mini disc. It's fairly easy to get, not particularly cheap, but not particularly expensive either. I would say kind of mid-range for the current second-hand MD market. I don't like a lot of Oasis's later stuff. I have got all their albums, as I collect Oasis and I'm a completist as well, but some of their later albums, there's still good stuff on, but I'm not that bothered. Early Oasis, certainly the first 2 albums, are really highly regarded by pretty much everybody. The third album, Be Here Now, people don't like that. I actually quite like Be Here Now. I'm probably in a minority, but there is the mini disc. Great guitar album, great Britpop album, indie, alternative, whatever you want to call it. Still holds up well, what, nearly 25 years later. My favourite track on here has always been Cast No Shadow. I wouldn't say there's a bad track on here. They're all great in their own way. Don't Look Back in Anger was an awesome single, definitely my favourite single off the album. Of course, you've also got the epic Champagne Supernova that closes out the album. Put that on and it's a really enjoyable listen every time. Right, I'll show you another mini disc here, and if you think that's a good guitar album, then this one, which arguably influenced Oasis, is even better in my opinion. It is The Stone Roses, with of course their self-titled debut, The Stone Roses. Wow, what an iconic album. Everything from the sleeve, to the music itself, to the whole mythology behind the roses, about how they sort of suddenly exploded and came to be the biggest alternative band in the country, and then infamously they spent years trying to record the follow-up, which wasn't well received. I've got the album Second Coming. It's not very good, I will admit. It's certainly not a patch on this. This is awesome. I've talked a little bit about this actual mini disc before. This is so rare. I can't remember how much I paid for this exactly, but it was too much. I don't think it was 3 figures, but it probably wasn't far off. And that's a bit disgraceful for a little mini disc, but this is so rare. They're like gold dust. I think this is more a promo item. I'm pretty certain this never got an official public release on MD. But it's a great album to have on any format, be it MD, vinyl, tape, CD, whatever. Have a quick look at the mini disc. Yep, Stone Roses, Manchester, more nostalgia for me really. This came out, I think it was 89, I was still at primary school. Didn't really notice the Stone Roses apart from their appearances on Top of the Pops and on the Radio 1 Top 40 show. But as I grew into a teenager and beyond, that's when I started getting into them properly. Yeah, 1989 is the copyright notice on here. Favourite track on this album, so difficult to pick really. I Wanna Be Adored, awesome. Waterfall, fantastic. I Am the Resurrection, amazing. All great. Stone Roses, another one of my go-to albums. Okay, my last 3 are all on CD, as that's the format I've mostly collected in my lifetime. This one was released about 10 years ago, 2009. It is Liebe ist für alle da by Rammstein. This is their, what is it, their 5th album, I think. I could be wrong there. I might make a note on screen if I am. I was only just getting into Rammstein when this album was announced, actually, and it was like, well, I want to quickly get all the back catalogue, which I did, and then look forward to the new album. And this, I think, is their best album for me. There was a lot of hype for it. It was their first album coming out in, I think, about 4 years. They're a band who do a lot of touring. In fact, their new album, which is untitled, weirdly, which came out earlier this year, that was their first proper studio album in a decade, but anyone would think they've just had a decade off. They haven't. They've just been touring incessantly. They are a band, really, who I think the experience of seeing them live is sometimes more important to the fan than actually listening to some of their records or their albums at home. I've never seen them live. I almost had the chance to years ago, and I got so far as to buy tickets, but I had to sell them on. But I'm someone who prefers to stay at home, listen to music, and also to watch concerts and stuff on TV. Rammstein have got a great catalogue for Blu-rays as well as for their actual music, their actual albums, etc., as they've released concerts from Berlin, Nîmes in France, Paris, Madison Square Garden, of course, in New York City. So you kind of can still get the concert experience, and it is an experience to behold as well, but you can have it in the comfort of your own home. Favourite track on here was the lead single from it, Pussy, In fact, that's probably still my favourite Rammstein track of all time. I just love the kind of rave style synth riff that permeates the track. Other tracks on here that I really like, all the singles off here are great. Ich tu die Weer is great. High Fish is a great single, and then other tracks are like Frauling in Paris, that's a fantastic track. Roter Sand, amazing. Mehr, amazing. Ramlied, yep, it's an album where there isn't really any bad tracks on it. So there we are, Liebe ist für alle da by Rammstein. My penultimate go-to album from this 5. Like I say, these weren't in any order, but if I was ranking them, I think this would be number 1 because it's my favourite band. I love the band, always have done, and I love this album. It is New Order Technique. This is actually the 2-disc expanded edition that came out about 12, 13 years ago. You put this on, and if you close your eyes, it's like you can almost feel yourself getting transported to like a Spanish package holiday. It's just got that Balearic acid house sort of sheen to it. It's just awash with sort of sunshine to me, this album. Being a massive New Order super fan, I know obviously the stories behind the making of this album and how difficult it actually was for them to get done, as they were in a poor studio in Ibiza that had very little facilities but had lots of nightclubs and ecstasy knocking round, so you do the math, as they say over the pond. Certainly one of my favourite albums of all time, if not my very favourite, and without a shadow of a doubt my favourite New Order album, and that's coming from someone who I've got everything New Order have done and I've listened to everything they've done constantly over the years. Not a bad track on this album. The 3 singles, Fine Time, Round and Round and Run, all brilliant. My favourite tracks on this album, I think, are All the Way and Dream Attack, which are, even though I would class this more of a dance album than a guitar album, they are 2 more guitar-oriented tracks. That's the thing with New Order. Just effortlessly blend sort of electronica and indie guitars, really. And then you've got Hooky's bass, of course, which sounds awesome any day of the week. And another great track I like, which is a real kind of Ibiza anthem type deal, is Mr. Disco. Just a marvellous album, brilliant artwork as well. I really ought to talk about the artwork more for some of these albums. These kind of almost pop art style Dayglow Peter Saville designs are just some of the best New Order sleeves that were around as well for Technique and its related singles. That is a go-to album any day of the week, Technique by New Order. And my last pick, like I say, it was difficult to whittle this down to 5. I've left out some acts that I really love, such as the Beatles, Depeche Mode, The Clash, Enya. Yes, it might be a guilty pleasure to some people, but I really love Enya. I just couldn't really think of one standout album that I would class as a go-to one for Enya, but I would probably have had to pick something like her very best of, which I know Steve Carlson won't mind if people pick greatest hits for this, but I wanted to go with proper studio albums. But my last pick is actually by Pet Shop Boys. This came out in 1987, and I only really became a Pet Shop Boys fan, and a fan of this album in particular, when I was very young. I would have been just turned 7, was because my mum had it on cassette and she loved this. She played it all the time. And my mum's not even really much of a music fan. She doesn't listen to a lot of music, but she had this on so much, and it's that sort of thing where I was indoctrinated, really. This is the Further Listening 2-disc edition on CD that has lots of alternative versions and B-sides and stuff on the second disc. What a great electro album this. Synth pop at its finest for me. There again, you listen to it and there isn't a bad track on the album. My favourite tracks on the album, King's Cross, is a beautiful song that I recommend anyone just as soon as you finish watching this video, and obviously subscribing to Steve and Daryl as well, but to go and listen to King's Cross is just a phenomenal song. There is 2 #1 hits on here. There is It's a Sin and Heart, both great. One More Chance, the album opener, that is brilliant. We've got the iconic cover of Neil Tennant yawning and Chris Lowe looking bored as normal. I love Pet Shop Boys, one of my favourite acts, well, like I say, since my mum got me into them weirdly, which is not something that tends to happen. There we are. I hope I haven't waffled on too long. This is my competition entry, my giveaway entry for Steve Carlson's amazing competition. I think the prizes that he's giving out, if you're interested in doing this, like I say, entries are open worldwide. But if you're interested in doing this, I think the first prize is a $100 voucher. I think he's adding some other prizes because he's had so many entries for this. And if you don't want to do a video entry, you can do a comment entry, and I think the prize for that is something like $30 gift voucher or something. I'm doing this because I just love to talk about music and talk about albums that I love, and hopefully this will be a great way of experiencing more of these great record collecting channels on YouTube. And this was a lot of fun. Thank you, Steve, for the opportunity. Thank you, Daryl at Off the Beaten Tracks, for alerting me to Steve's channel and to this competition. I'm going to go now, and I might well listen to one of my 5 go-to albums. So if you want to enter this contest, then check the link down at the top of the description. And I'm going to go, and I hope you will join me again next time for my next music-related video. Cheers, everyone. See ya!